Today we're going to talk all about the IEP. We're going to do it in just one video. I'm going to give a big overview of the IEP document, and I'm going to do it in a way that somebody on a TikTok video told me about a year ago, and I thought it was brilliant. I wrote a blog post, I made a separate TikTok about it. So the IEP document, or Individualized Education Plan for your child, is really looking at where your child is right now, where we want them to be in a year, and how they'll get there. So let's go through this little journey and figure that out. Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm a former special education teacher and administrator, and now I'm an educational advocate. And I have had a lot of meetings. I've had meetings that I've led, I've had meetings that I've been a part of, and now on the other side of the table, I can tell you there are some really great things that can happen in an IEP meeting to support your child if you understand the IEP and know what questions to ask and what you should be seeing. And if hearing this makes you realize, I'd like to talk to her, I want her to help me out, you can click on the link and it'll take you to my services page and you can see which option is right for you. I recommend the 1 hour meeting. We can work together and I can give you some actionable steps to take right now. Let's get into what the IEP is. So the first part of the IEP is demographics. There's just going to be a page where they go over all the information. Are the phone numbers correct? Is the address correct? Is this who you are? Great. The next part of the IEP is I call present levels. It's also called the PLAF. It's the present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. That section of the IEP is covering all parts of your child's school day, all of it. So we are looking at academics. It doesn't matter how your child is currently functioning or what program your child is currently in, there is going to be a section about academics. You should be seeing information about your child's reading skills, writing skills, math skills, and then depending on your child's specific program, there might be information about other subject areas. I would also look for information about specials. If your child is in art or music, you want to see how they're doing in different structured environments. So a classroom setting is a little bit different than choir or band. How are they doing in different settings throughout the day? Are they finding success in all areas? Do they need different help in different situations? Probably, most kids do. Another part of what you should expect to see in present levels is information from the service providers. So if your child has speech and language, if they have occupational therapy, maybe they meet with a counselor, you should see some updates in the present levels about that work that they're doing with those service providers. Obviously, if it's a counselor, you're not going to see very big specifics, but you might see that they've been able to work through zones of regulation and they're successfully applying that information in different settings. That's a program that helps your child really understand their own emotions and be able to display expected behaviors at school. Maybe in speech and language, there is a good summary of what your child's been able to accomplish that year, and then some new information about what they're doing right now, because that's, again, going to inform the goals. The next thing you're going to be seeing in that section, hopefully, is something about behavior. Even if your child has no behavior needs at school, there should be a statement about that. If your child does have behavior needs at school, maybe they have behavior goals or at least accommodations to support behavior needs. Maybe they have a behavior intervention plan or behavior support plan. You should be seeing data in the present levels part of the IEP document about that. It might be reflected later on as well, but you should see a little bit there. And then you should be seeing some information about independent skills. So is your child able to manage their supplies? Are they able to move independently throughout the campus, or do they need help? You should also see functional skills. Are they able to get started right away on an assignment, or do they need help? Is there some executive functioning needs that are rising to the surface that might need to be addressed? All of that is in that present levels. Depending on the school district and your child and how the IEP document is structured where you are, there might be information with historical information about your child as well, especially if your child has a specific condition, when that was first identified, what the treatment or progress has been. That information should be included in the IEP as well. Your part of that portion of the IEP as the parent or caregiver is to provide what's going on outside of school right now. So you may have received a letter at home asking you to provide that information, and you would have already submitted it, or you might be having a conversation about it at the meeting. If your child is in sports, I would share that information. If your child has started a new medication, or maybe there's a new report from an outside provider that you have to share, I would let the team know, make sure they have access to it so that that information can be added to the document as needed. Next up is the IEP goals. Goals on the IEP are the specific things that are being worked on for your child in that cycle. So it's what will take your child to where we want them to be. A goal on the IEP should be a SMART goal, which most people are familiar with those. It should be specific, measurable, relevant, achievable, and time-bound. So I might have done those out of order. So you want to make sure that it follows that structure when you're looking at the IEP goal. Some places have objectives and benchmarks, some do not. Those should all support the IEP goal. When you're looking at a goal, it needs to be something that you understand as the parent or caregiver, because you might be reinforcing some of that at home. When you're having discussions with the team, it's really appropriate to ask if they think that goal is achievable, if it's something that seems really big for you and something that you don't know if your child can do. You also on goals, and I'll do a whole separate video about goals later, but you shouldn't be seeing the same thing year over year. If you are, there's probably some different supports that are needed so that your child can reach that goal. Because goals are measuring progress and you're going to be receiving progress updates, they really need to be specific and trackable. There needs to be some way to take data on these goals. So you wouldn't want to see a goal, like a quick tip would be, you don't want to see a goal like, will improve math skills. You want it to be specific, like, will solve 2-digit multiplication problems with 80% accuracy in 3 out of 4 trials, each progress monitoring period, or something like that. So you know they're not being tested on this 4 times a year, it's 4 times in that progress monitoring cycle, and we're looking for 80% accuracy. Sometimes people put 100% on goals. I think talk to the team about that and see what you feel. I think 100% every time is a really big ask for anyone, let alone a student who's struggling in a specific area, but that's something for you to talk about with your IEP team. Let's talk about services. So this is part of now we're in the how we're going to get there. So we talked about present levels, where we are now, goals are where we want to be in a year, and then how we're going to get there. So the services is the first part. The services are service providers. So speech and language pathologist, occupational therapist, adaptive physical education teacher, vision. There's all different types of service providers that your child may access so that they can meet their educational goals and needs. And they are going to have services outlined on the IEP. For services, you should see who is the service provider. Is it the special education teacher, speech and language pathologist? You should see how often they will meet with your child and for how long. And then you should also see where it's happening. So is it happening in a small group, in the classroom, one-on-one? I typically only saw one-on-one when I was teaching for students with speech and language who had very specific needs. It's not super common, but if your child has counseling, it might be one-on-one, it might be in a small group. And then you also want to see, is it a direct service? So all those things I just mentioned where it's with your child would be a direct service. Sometimes your child can have a consult service, and that's where the adults are talking to each other and finding the best ways to support your child in different settings throughout their school day. Let's talk about accommodations and modifications. This is definitely a section of the IEP that warrants its own video, but broad overview is the accommodations are ways that your child can access the information and demonstrate their knowledge without fundamentally changing what is being taught. So this can include everything from flexible seating to being able to take frequent breaks to having reduced number of problems, but still demonstrating all the skills on that specific assignment. A modification is fundamentally changing what your child is learning in comparison to their peers. So maybe your child has a modified curriculum that would be included in the IEP. It would be outlined that the curriculum is modified. So maybe instead of doing 20 problems and they're doing 5, if the whole class got 20 problems and practiced 3 different skills in those 20 problems, and your child is only doing 5 problems, they might only have to demonstrate 1 skill. Or maybe they're doing their academics in a completely separate setting, in a self-contained setting, and so their curriculum is modified. That's information you would want to know. I think modification, heads up parents, if your child has a specific learning disability, or maybe they're qualified under other health impairment and they're in high school and they're in general education for most of the school day, I would be very clear with the IEP team to see if your child has modifications, and if they do, does that change their ability to receive a diploma or get a certificate of completion? Those are just questions you want to ask when your child is in high school. In all of the information that I'm sharing today, there's no value. One is not better than the other. One isn't a negative or a positive. It's just, what does your child need so they can find success in their educational opportunities throughout their school day, their school year, their school journey. At the end of all this, I just want to say, you're not expected to be the expert. You're just expected to understand enough that you can have meaningful participation with the school-based IEP team. It's literally a part of IDEA that you can participate in your child's IEP, but part of that happens because you understand what is the IEP. And I hope this makes you feel like you have a little bit more understanding today. If you heard all this and you thought, oh my gosh, I know there's a lot more, and there is. This was a very broad overview. I do have a guide for parents that you can check out. I've had that linked as well. You can click on it and check it out. It's got videos and print and checklists, different information to make sure that you have a way to access and understand the information about your child's learning plans, and that you are able to be an active participant at the next IEP meeting. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments what you want to learn more about, or if you have comments and questions about specific things I shared in this video today.